Mary Waterford here from Western Sydney Community Forum, and we've got Brian Smith from Local Community Services Association.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Brian. And we're going to talk about the Justice Woods inquiry into child protection and the recommendations that have been released last week, somewhat unexpectedly early. So we're all eagerly trying to work through what his recommendations might mean. Do you want to give us some broad brushstrokes about the report?
Yes, fine. Look, I'm not an expert in child protection, and this report is over 1,000 pages long. So,
wow.
and probably, you know, many of us are not going to read it in its entirety very quickly. So, one of the things is, what are the important parts of the report? If you've only got a bit of time, what can you most usefully read? And we're particularly talking here to CSGP services, and CSGP services in Western Sydney in particular, but across the state.
And particularly neighbourhood centres. And
particularly neighbourhood centres too. And I mean, often one might say the first thing to read is the executive summary and the recommendations, but I'd say I wouldn't even bother with that at the moment. If you want to really get a hold of the guts of the report, read Chapter 10, which is the directions for the way forward.
Yep.
Because in that chapter he sets out the principles that they want to apply, the goals they want to apply in terms of reform, and what the major reforms are. So I would say start with chapter 10.
Yep.
Then if you've got through chapter 10, and actually chapter 10 is only a few pages, so it's really quite easy to read. And look, I've got to say that the principles here are things that everybody would want to endorse. You know, child protection is the collective responsibility of the whole of government and of the community. It's really good to see that this report recognises that it's the whole of the community that creates child protection, not just government and not just government services. And some very good goals. And then moving on to what the Commission needs to be done. But if you've got through that and you want to get into a little bit more meat, then Chapter 7 on early intervention is a good chapter to read. This is more meaty, more on it, but again, it's not over long if you think of it in the context of the 1,000 pages of the total report. And then, in particular, in relation to CSGP funded services, Chapter 25, DOCS funded non-government services, and in particular in this chapter, there's a reference to the CSGP review that has happened over the past 2 years. There is a reference to the business case that's been developed in response to the review and the argument that CSGP requires a budget enhancement of $45 million a year over 3 years.
Which was the business case.
Which was the business case that was put to Treasury, and which was sort of held in suspension until this report was released. There is also in Chapter 25, I think it's in Chapter 25, yes, some real encouragement in terms of small funded services. For example, 2581, as small funded services comprise a major part of the DOCS current service system, and very often are on the ground in locations in rural or remote communities which are not serviced by the larger NGOs or head agencies. It is in DOC's best interest to ensure their continuing viability. The inquiry appreciates the effect of the funding reform process embarked upon by DOCS on smaller agencies. It acknowledges and supports DOC's efforts at helping them to keep up the pace, as in many parts of the state their viability will be essential. So it appreciates the viability for smaller organisations. So in summary, 10, 7, and 25. Read them.
Okay.